What's up again, my friends? Happy solstice. It is the summer solstice today. It's one of my favorite days, the longest day of the year. Actually, it kind of blows my mind that it's already here. I wasn't really considering the length of the day aspect and the fact that, summer will be on the decline from here on out. But I usually make a video on the solstice, both of them, and it just amazes me how many I've made now. It's just because it reminds me, it's like these recurring patterns, these themes that come up, kind of like when I make a video and I'll talk about a topic and think, I probably have already done a video about that. But some of the subjects are just ones that, I guess they come in many different forms and at many different times, and I go through many different cycles of what I'm interested in and what, fascinates me. And lately it's just been about existence, about being myself, being who I am, and learning more about who I am as an individual. And it's funny because I've spent most of my life thinking I knew myself. And even, say, 6-7 years ago, when I first started getting to, say, the Eastern, mysticism and whatnot, I found myself saying, okay, there's a certain aspect of it that's very attractive, but what really moves me is the acceptance of those cycles. That in many of the Eastern philosophies and religions, they talk about the cycle of being and the cycle of knowing. It's just like a sleep cycle, and then there's the yearly cycle. So during the summer, you're going to have a different attitude than you do in the winter. I mean, I got up this morning and, I went around and took a bunch of stuff down off the walls and did a bunch of patchwork. I'm getting ready to paint in there. Got a couple of gallons of paint, and then I worked on the pond for a while. And these are things I would not do in the winter, because winter is time for thought. And so, metaphorically speaking, I think of winter as the dark night, if you will, the night of mankind. And it's interesting because, and I'm talking about day and night, we sleep at night because it's dark and we need sleep, so it makes sense. But there's more to it than that. The human mind goes through these different daily cycles where, beyond the sleeping-waking cycle, and in Vedic tradition, they knew this pretty well. They had the few different body types. There was, I think, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, if I'm not mistaken, or Kapha. And these different body types are the thin, like I'm the lanky, I can't remember which one I am, but everyone has their own particular body type. For me, no matter how much junk food I eat, I'm not going to become a big fat person. It's just my metabolism. Of course, at a certain point, you're damaging yourself, however you look at it. But what I mean is that each body type reacts differently to different foods. And this extends so far beyond what we consume into our stomachs. This is what we consume into our minds. And that's where I'm going with this. That different people, different persons react differently to different stimuli, different external stimuli. One religion may be great for one person, but may never work for another person. One attitude might work for a person, but never for another person. And I don't mean never as in it can never work, but I won't go as far as to say that each person's born with a path set out that they have to follow, and if they don't, they'll go crazy. But to an extent, this has been shown to be true in many cases. For example, people who don't follow their true intentions and what they truly want to do in life, they become, deluded. And we get cognitive dissonance, where we believe one thing, but we act on another, and we know where we want to be in life, but we condemn ourselves to living in a way we don't want to because we think that's just the way it has to be. And this happens in relationships all the time. People end up settling for someone that they're married with and fight all the time with, fighting in front of the kids, and physical, verbal abuse constantly, and always never wanting to see the other person, but it's just the way it is, and we become adapted to that. In the same way, we become adapted to our daily cycles and the fact that when we wake up, it's often when the most worry comes about our lives. And this is why nighttime is harder for people. Towards the evening and into the early morning hours, the witching hour and beyond, we have these thoughts of, inadequacy, thoughts of what we could have done better. Hopefully we do. I mean, this is our, conscience kicking in to say, okay, I have to behave better, I have to do this, or, I have to stop doing this or start doing this. And I'm constantly in self-analysis, and even with the bad habits I do have, or the bad attitudes I might have sometime, I'm aware of them consistently. And that's kind of where I come to this point. I started asking myself, are these things that I need to change because other people want me to change them? Or are they really things that I need to change for myself? And that's a lot harder to think about and to really analyze, because I guess cynicism was going to be the title of this video, and I was going to talk about, what it means to be a cynical person in today's world. I found that I'm very cynical, but, and sure, I can be sarcastic, and I can be a handful, I'm sure, to be around, but that cynicism is somewhat a defense for having to tolerate a system that's put in front of me that is taunting me with being forced into it. And each one of us is born into this bullshit system that we've created as humans. And the trick is to realize that it's a system, to realize that you don't have to follow that system, and to realize that you don't have to be consumed by it or feel trapped by it. Because I think a lot of people who realize that, wait a minute, this isn't the reality I want to live in, or the people around me aren't behaving in the way that is conducive with the way I think life should be lived, rather than trying to influence people and to help others and to influence our small sphere we can, within ourselves mostly, they'll start to lash out and talk about how crooked the world is, how corrupt people are, and pretty soon the cynicism turns into a blatant disregard for humanity in general, or a hatred for people. And I meet a lot of people who are like that, who really think that humans are a scourge and a disease and that we shouldn't be on this planet. And there was a time when I felt that way. But I realized we can never feel that way about people. We can only feel that way about ourselves. Because no one of us knows enough people to get a good judge of character on how the world really operates. We see the news, we read the headlines, we become part of the program that we're incorporated into. And the only escape from that is sometimes cynicism. Being able to just, maybe that's why I love satire, and I love some of the shows that really rip on society in general, that really put it out there and say, this is how people are. You judge whether it's good or bad, when the show is neutral on it, but just says, this is how we are. But I only mention shows because that's kind of a reflection of, the inner workings of society, of what people want to watch. That television shows and movies are a reflection of man's desire to see this story replayed over and over, what they call the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell did a lot of work on that, and several other speakers. All of these people that I've listened to through history have had so much to contribute to my understanding of the world around me, yet no one person has really been able to fulfill any guru role, if you will, because everyone is lacking, and that's the beauty of it. We're all lacking. If somebody were listening to every word I said, I would say, don't. You can listen, but what I mean is don't follow in my footsteps. Don't try to assume that, I'm an imperfect human being, and I love to admit that because it takes the guard down, If you're trying to defend yourself as being this perfect, great person, like, say, the President of the United States, the guy really, truly thinks in his mind he's flawless, that anything he touches turns to gold. And that's from a lifetime of being praised and to not being told how it really is, but also of not listening. So it's a balance of listening to ourselves and listening to others, because there is so much common sense out there that can really be attained, but people refuse to agree on a consensus on what, that is. Like, well, there is no such thing as common sense, but that may be true to an extent. Make sure my camera's still going once in a while, so I'm not just spitting in the wind. So I kind of leads me into something I've been really fascinated with lately, at least for a couple days I was, which is this idea of a simulated reality, or that we're living in a simulation. And I won't go into detail on this because I was going to make a separate video about it, but I didn't even want to attempt to tackle it because it's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about in this. I really don't. Because to understand this whole simulated reality, it's the theory that basically we're living in a simulation right now. And it has to do with the fact, or the belief that most likely any advanced race who got to the point where they could, where they would be, I don't know, would end up killing themselves off or creating a simulation of themselves if they became advanced enough. And that simulation may take on a life of its own. And it gets into mathematics, into physics, and the way that matter behaves, and energy. Won't pretend I understand it, but it reminds me of a book I read called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot about 10 years ago. And basically it states that all matter is merely energy. And it was one of my first introductions to Tesla and these theories of vibration and quantum energy, and fascinating stuff. I loved it, and I'll probably reread it down the road. And many great works have been done since then on similar subjects, but it's all fodder. It's all just speculation that we're living in a non-reality that is maybe a computer program of some sort, like the Matrix. Okay, I hate using that term because everybody uses that same fucking analogy, but the only reason I'm bringing that up is to say it's another escape. It's another way for us to try to say, what is beyond this, that we were created in a simulation, or that there is a God. It's trying to prove the ether, prove God, prove existence, prove the afterlife, and trying to prove that there's something out there besides just what is. And all I wanted to say is that to me, just what is cannot be summed up any other way than just, holy shit, what is it? It wouldn't matter if it's all a projection, it wouldn't matter if it's all an illusion. The fact that everything around here works in symbiosis, that we as humans share certain values and traits with nature around us, and so trying to deny that by thinking that we're somehow unfit humans, or that we don't deserve to be here. It's only a waste of our own time and energy. And I think that each one of you, and I'm not, no pep talk here, but each one of you, each one of us, all of us, we all have this within us too. Follow our own path. We're still going to have to utilize some of society's, I guess it was another thing that I think Joseph Campbell said. He was saying that realizing you live in the illusion, realizing that you live in a pattern that's been created by man in a lot of ways, it should empower you to use the system to your advantage. And that doesn't mean taking advantage monetary-wise. I don't mean that at all. I'm saying to use what you have around you and use the tools. If you're a carpenter and all you're given is some plumbing tools and you need to build a house, well, then you'll find a way to use that wrench to pound a nail. The tools that you're given in the toolbox, instead of just throwing them down and throwing a tissy fit about it and saying, well, I don't know, I don't belong here, and this life isn't for me, it's like, tackle that shit head on and embrace it. Grab those moments when you feel great and stretch them out as far as you can. And the moments when you're not feeling so great, just think about the times when you will again, because it's bound to happen. So, take care, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Wonderful solstice. Take care.